Hello, my fishies. It's Kat from the Fire Tuna Club. I'm at it again with some more doll crafts. As I like to do, I'm aiming to use only supplies you probably already have on hand. So I hope that you enjoy. Words started. I look so angry. So I hope you join along and let's go ahead and get started. If you have a kid or have ever been to a party where they have those ring cupcakes, you have one lying around. It is a cheap plastic themed ring. In this case, the one I'm using is a spider theme because I love me some Halloween. With the ring as my starting point, I did use some additional supplies to begin this hat. You'll want to start out by cutting out some felt, and then I also use a little bit of cardstock to offer support since the felt is not very strong. If you have strong felt, awesome. Mine was not. You'll want to cut the felt at 3/4 and you'll want to cut the paper just a little bit less. And in this case, use something to help you get a nice solid ring. I was going to use the body of a paint bottle I had, but the top part actually worked out better. You'll want to glue your paper in place. Finish gluing up your cardstock core and set it aside to dry. While we're waiting for that, go ahead and grab some tulle. If you have it in the wrong color, don't worry! I have solved that issue. The point is not to have to buy anything new. So get your white tulle for your black hat, and we're gonna take a Sharpie and color it in. Once you're done coloring the section you need, you'll want to cut it out and double check your work. Color it again if you need to, and then we'll return back to the cardstock that should be dry by now. Coat the cardstock in a thin, even coat of glue. Using the bottle support, if you need to, you'll want to line up one edge of the felt with one edge of the cardstock. This will help your hat keep a solid shape at the top. Cut your felt strip to size and make sure that you clip the seam while it's drying for a nice, smooth seam. Using the supported side, you'll want to put glue on the top and then glue it onto the remaining felt and put a weight on it so it's a nice, good bond. Once that glue has yet again dried, carefully cut as close to the hat as you can manage, and this will give you the core hat piece. You can stop here and it's a regular pillbox hat, or continue on with a decorative ring and tulle to make it fancy. If you're impatient like me, go ahead and skip the paint and use a Sharpie to get the inside of your hat to match the outside, and then you will want to cut off the ring part of your decorative ring. So it's time to get to hand sewing. As you can see here, I used black thread to go with my black hat, to put on my black spider, and my black tulle. Doesn't the stitching look lovely? It's very clear to see. Basic whip stitching should do just fine, honestly. And I did do a couple of tacking stitches because the tulle was pretty stiff, just to hold it in place. But I didn't do anything fancy. You do not have to be an amazing hand sewer. Just use a thread that disappears in the material you're working with, and you can hide almost any disasters. Knot your thread, clip off the excess, and set your hat aside. We'll deal with attaching it to the doll head later. On to the next hat. In typical winging it fashion, you will want to find circular objects around you and test size them against the doll in question.
Okay. What are you doing?
Go with whichever one you think looks best.
Can we not do this anymore?
Clean your workstation before the next step. Once you've picked out your template, use it on your felt and mark around it. Then you'll want to cut it out and try to be very smooth with your cutting so you don't get any jagged edges. Now while I set up for the next scene, go ahead and check out the supply list before I get too caught up in making this next hat. Cover your doll in a plastic bag to protect your doll from the glue. You'll want to take your felt cutout piece, soak the center area in your choice of glue, and then you will want to arrange the core piece on the doll's head in the area that you want rounded over the scalp. You can see here I eventually resorted to pins and needles to keep things in place while it dried. And then also had to rely on pliers to get them out because they dried good. But use whatever works for you. This may take 2 or 3 rounds of setting some glue and letting it dry to shape it. I did eventually resort to using aluminum foil and spherical objects to form the shape of the hat, but take however many turns it needs to make the shape you want out of your hat for a dramatic look, and then we'll move on to the next step. You can see that I didn't glue every single bit of the hat. Some of it is going to stay flexible, but that is entirely up to you on how much glue you will use. Now get your hot glue gun going. In my case, I had a little hot glue bowl. And while it's warming up, you want to collect your assorted silk flowers, little itty bitty craft flowers, scraps of ribbon, whatever you think will suit your hat. Gather them together, and let's fast forward to the glue being ready to go. Keep in mind, this is the part that will take you the longest. It's a lot of fiddling and kind of holding stuff up next to each other to see if it works for your overall idea. And this is entirely up to you. For me, I think it took 4 hours of fiddling back and forth to get a hat arrangement I was happy with, and to whoever looks on it, they might think it's hideous, but I'm happy with the hat and the arrangement I put together. If you guys do make your own hats based off of this kind of junk transformation tutorial I'm doing right now, please comment below or tag me on Instagram. I do want to see what you guys come up with. A bit of very fussy hand sewing later to get the ribbon where I wanted it left me with time to finally flip the hat over and decide to do a slight bit of embellishment on the other side so it wasn't quite so plain. I used some of the golden ribbon that I used on the flower arrangement. I wanted all the drama to be on that side, so I kept away from all the stuff that would be too loud on the flip side. Top side, flip side, whatever. And of course, some more hand sewing in place. Keep in mind, glue might be the better option here because it really is hard to sew through glued fabric. It was really stiff, and I really should have been using my thimble. So once your hat is done, we are going to skip explaining how to attach it again, and we'll come back to that because I have another hat for you to make. Yes, you read that right. This is how much I love making these doll crafting videos that I'm coming back to the fur. Guys, like, my loathing for fur increases with every torturous project I do. I am just about ready to throw out every bit of fur in my house, maybe even my dog's. Just kidding, guys, I love you! Step number 1 is to get your tape measure and measure your doll's head. Give a little wiggle room. Like, this one measured about 18 centimeters, but I went up to 20 centimeters to account for hairstyles and seams. You can see here I kind of ballparked the height of the hat. I squared it up later, and unfortunately I didn't measure it, so I can't tell you how tall it was, but just go with what looks good. Test it up against your doll as you go. Once you have that piece cut about as high as you'd like it and it's nice and straight, you'll want to go ahead and get some needle and thread and start hand sewing up the side. Yes, I have a sewing machine. No, you don't need one. Fur is forgiving, so even if your stitches are a little wonky, don't worry, the fur will hide it. And yes, I do recommend having a vacuum on hand to get the little fluffs and every cut you make. Trust me, you'll need it or you'll breathe the fur in. At this point, you want to take your unfinished cylinder and run around your house and try to find something that fits in the hole. For me, this was a coffee cup. Using that coffee cup on the fabric, I traced the bottom that fit into the cylinder to give me the top part of my hat. And then from there, it was simply cutting it out, vacuuming it up, and much like before, with the right sides together, stitch the hat up. sharing this for those of you who aren't in the know. Quilting clips do actually have some built-in seam allowances, so you can clip them where you want to get like a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and sew from there. So once you finish sewing your hat, all you have to do is tie off your knot, slip it inside out, attack it with the vacuum, and then you're done. So let's get on to the next thing. So for this one, I'm skipping right into just check out the supply list so I can get into how I made this, because it's made out of a lot of ends and odds and ends, things, whatever. Once you have your head substitute ready, that's when you'll need the plastic bag if you need to protect it. And then you'll want to get your paperboard, be it the paper towel roll, toilet paper roll, or recycled cereal box. Try to aim for a thin one because you will need it to be slightly flexible. You can ballpark the diameter of your circle by measuring how deep you want your hat to be. And go from there, but snack time, too much math. Once you've finished your snack, get your scissors and wreck your circle cutout. Notching it as much as possible for bending is good, but not so much that you're making paperboard confetti. Wetting the paperboard for shaping is also an option too. Just keep in mind it makes it easier to rip and tear, so be mindful as you're shaping it over your doll head or head substitute. Once that's dry, you'll turn around and get some glue and glue your tabs to lock the shape in. Keep your head or head substitute on hand to make sure the shape is right, and then wait for the glue to dry. Choose the radius of the diameter you think you want the hat to be. Mine is irrelevant, you'll see why later. And then you'll kind of want to do the same thing and ballpark the crown that you already have, and draw that circle as well. You will only want to cut out the outer brim, and on the inner circle is where you'll want to take like an X-Acto knife or like an awl, an awl and some scissors and get a cut started. You do not want to cut this completely out. You want to notch it and cut out some of it, not all, because we need parts of it to glue it on. Yes, I said glue it on. Let's just speed through this part. Don't forget to have some playtime while you're waiting for stuff to dry. I don't say this in enough of my videos, but you really should have your dolls handy to test fit at any point in your projects, just because if you don't, chances are you'll make it either too big or too small. And before I continue any further, it's another tedious gluing bit. Just slather your hat in glue in sections so it doesn't dry while you're working, and glue your embroidery floss onto your base. You can choose to cut your hat smaller midway through the project, or if you run out of embroidery floss like I did, yeah, just roll with it. Speaking of rolling with it, guess who lost the footage of me actually finishing the bottom of this hat? Yeah, that's right, not me. So anyway, let's actually talk about how you can attach your hats to your dolls. Option 1 and 2 fundamentally work the same, but one is done with jump rings, ribbon, and glue, and the other one is done with glue and string. So just keep that in mind. For the ribbon version, I used Fabrifix to get the jump rings placed. You'll want to glue one side and then the other while you're holding it in your hat for proper sizing and jump ring placement. You want to make sure everything is dry before you glue in your ribbon with a glue that is mixed media friendly. Fabrifix is not. Do not use it for this part. Finish up the inside of your hat with either more floss or some paint. And then finally weave in a ribbon of your choice. This can be done to match whatever your doll happens to be wearing, and use it to hold the hat on your doll. This hat functions under the same concept. Glue some knotted loops of thread into the hat, tie some elastic to the hook end of a hook and eye set, and attach it to one side. The hook will slip into the loop on the other side, and while it will work, this is not as user-friendly an option. On to the last option, which is the cruelest and easiest method. Stab pins into your doll's brain through your hat. How's that for an efficient use of time and being speedy? Thanks for still sticking around. I am continuing to make stuff. I'm already working on the next video. Halloween is coming. I'm ready. Maybe. I guess we'll find out in October. Either way, see you all when I finish another project.